New discoveries show that the dates of the Muslim conquest of Iraq are much earlier than Muslims have claimed. If these dates are wrong, can we really trust the standard Islamic narrative for the other important dates in Islamic history? Well, hello everyone. This is Al Fadi, and with us here virtually, our dear brother, and becoming a dear friend of our also studio, brother Mel. And we've been talking about an issue related to a dating contradiction, dating conflict between the standard Islamic narrative related to the conquest of the Persian Empire, if you wish, or modern day Iraq, or the Sasanian Empire, if you wish, and another dating that has to do with the what we call the War of the Apostates or the Apostasy Wars. And certain discoveries are pointing to at least 4 to 5 years earlier dating than the traditional or standard dating that is known based on what we call the standard Islamic narrative. Of course, with us here in studio to unpack all of that for us, or continue unpacking all of this for us, is our friend Mel. Mel, thank you again, as always. And last time, I thought you built a solid foundation showing the sources of which you're building on this thesis that will lead us to some really damaging conclusions in terms of how it contradicts the standard Islamic narrative. So I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, and it's great to be back. So what we saw the last day was that the Battle of Ubula, or the Battle of Basra, was meant to be in 633 AD. So Muhammad was meant to have died in 632, then we have the Ridda Wars, and then we have this Battle of Basra. But what we discovered was that when we look at the leaders of the Persians at that time, Ardashir III in particular, we discover that actually he died 3 years before this date. So what is going on? Saif ibn Umar mentions Ardashir as one of the leaders at the time of this battle. So we pushed the date back about 5 years, in that case, to 628. So today we're going to look at the second battle, which is the Battle of Dat al-Salasil. So again, similar to the last battle, it is placed as 12 AH or 633 AD. This war has also been reported by Ibn Hisham, Waqidi, and Ibn Sa'id in the Sirah, Kitab al-Makazi and Tabakat al-Kabir, respectively. Apologies if I mispronounced those names.
It's basically, Kitab al-Maghazi, the battles, basically, by al-Waqidi, and also al-Tabakat al-Kubra. It's by Ibn Sa'd, which is, technically speaking, both are historical. One focuses on military campaigns, and one is focusing on much more than that, broader than that.
Yeah, so this war, Dat al-Salasil, has been reported by these as having taken place during the year 8 of the Hijrah, that is 629, separate from Saif. Saif says it happened in essentially 633. So what poor Shariati, who's the Iranian scholar that we mentioned the last day, what she says, if we follow the Sasanian chronology and compare it to the events described for the year 8 of Hijrah in other Arabic sources, then this war took place probably in 629. So it does line up with what these other Arabic scholars, historians, said. Now, what's interesting is Al-Tabri thinks it occurred way later. Al-Tabri takes the rare and unusual step of denouncing Saif's story, observing that the narrative as we have it is different from what the true traditions have brought us. For the Battle of Ubula was only in the days of Umar when it was accomplished at the hands of Utbah in the year 14 of the Hijrah. So Al-Tabri, and he's obviously writing centuries later again, he thinks that that first battle of Basra happened in 635 or 636. We know that it actually occurred much earlier, about 5 years earlier. So he's even further away than even the standard Islamic narrative. So the issue there then is that the dating really it's 629 that the battle occurred, and not as suggested 633. So I'm going to move now on to the Battle of Madar, which the Sind places again in 12 AH. So these battles happened consecutively after each other, all more or less in the same year and a half. A note I should point out, it's a minor detail, but it would be a mistake to think of the year of the Hijra or the year of the Arab as starting in January. It simply is the start of whenever they went on this conquest back in the very early days, probably August or September of that year. So just bear that in mind, because sometimes it's confusing when we're switching from AH to AD, for example. But in any case, this is what poor Shariati has to say. She says the internal evidence provided by Saif on both of the major figures involved in the Battle of Madar and his contention that these were active during the regency of Ardashir III, 628 to 630, continues to tally with the course of events transpiring in Iran as we have reconstructed these based on the Hawadi Namag tradition. She goes on to say that Saif is aware of internal divisions on the Iranian side consistent with the Parthian and Sasanian contention at the time. So, in other words, she sees evidence that he does know what he's talking about. She says that Hormuz was defeated and killed in the Battle of Dat al-Salasil, which according to some sources took place during the year 8 of Hijra, 629, precisely during the rule of Ardashir III. When Hormuz died and his army was on the verge of withdrawing, however, the regional armies warned each other that to disperse would mean disaster. The command of the forces was then taken over by the Parthian general Karen. So, in conclusion there, we discover that the Battle of Madar didn't happen in 633 as formerly thought, but based on Hormuz's death, we can confidently place the battle in 629 to 630. So a massive difference. There's a difference there of between 3 to 4 years. So just come back to you. I don't know if you want to come in on that.
Oh, sure. I thought like you're looking at something. I'm sorry. I was just waiting for you to finish your thought. So here is what's going on, Mill, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, any way you look at it, just by virtue of the fact that there are differences in dating between things like this that collaborate, at least certain battles existed, but just the dating for those battles is not accurate, and even comparing it to the standard Islamic narrative, this in and of itself should prompt you to begin to question a lot of things. There is a lot on the line now, because it seemed like dating in Islam, and especially early Islam, is extremely important. You talk about the death of the Prophet, his birth, when did he start his ministry, Hijrah, that's an important date. The battles, the Caliphate, when did Abu Bakr assume the reign? When did Uthman basically collect the Quran, the standard Quran that we have? And the list can go on and on and on. So any way you look at it, just by virtue of just looking at the fact there are contradictions, it should prompt me to at least begin to question many of these events. Did they occur? Did they occur the way it was reported to me? If certain numbers, like dating numbers, are not accurate, how much so when it comes to the content itself and many other factors? Let me know if this makes sense. Am I making sense here? When I'm saying things like this, if you can add to that if you like.
Yeah, so it's not just, we can't just look at each of these battles in isolation. They're part of a series. So if there's something wrong with the dating, if these dates are actually 4 or 5 years earlier than claimed in the standard Islamic narrative, it's going to shift something else out of place. So what are the key things that are meant to have happened before these battles? Well, first of all, Muhammad is meant to have died. Now, the problem is, if the Battle of Madar and the Battle of Basra happened after he died, and these battles happen in, as we see in this case, 629 to 630, that means that this figure of Muhammad must have died before that, if we accept the standard Islamic narrative that the sequence of events is that first he died, Then we have the Ridda Wars, and then we have these conquests into Iraq, because Saif clearly states that after Khalid dealt with the Ridda Wars, he then started the conquests in Iraq. So that's where the problem lies.
Absolutely. And let me, just something just prompted me right now to mention. If Muhammad died earlier, this is so damaging. You know why, brother? Because this means that somebody else finished the Islamic teachings and the Islamic narrative, if you wish. Which really, it's apparent, by the way, when you look at the different qira'at readings, variant text readings of the Quran, different ways how the Quran was being corrected and transmitted. It makes perfect sense now why we're seeing this confusion, if you wish. So it is important. I want my viewers, especially if you're Muslim, don't just shrug it off and write me a note and say, these guys don't know what they're talking about. Thank you. I read that many times. Now your part is to go ahead and refute us then. Okay, if we don't know what we're talking about, go ahead and refute us. Bring us your evidence now, because we're giving you the sources where we are coming up with this. This is what research is all about, by the way. Mel will do our research. I can come back and say, you know what, my research, and here's evidence, contradict yours. Do the same for us, Bring us your research. We welcome it. But don't bring me back the exact same thing. This is what Ibn Hisham says. This is what Ibn Ishaq says. We're tired of this, okay? Bring us something new that we didn't know. Mel, last word.
Yeah, so just kind of really hammer this home. So if 628 was the year of the first battle, 628, even 629, the Ridda Wars must have happened the year before, so that brings us to, say, 627, 628. And Muhammad is meant to have died just prior to that. The problem, in addition to it being out with the standard Islamic narrative, we also have this report by Thomas the Presbyter, who says that Muhammad, whoever he is, was seen east of Gaza in 634. So it's even worse now. So none of this makes sense. So either did he die in 628? Did he die in 634? Did he live beyond that? There's major problems with this. I can't bring it together. I can only point out the holes. I cannot reconstruct what actually happened, because it's such a mess. If Muslims out there can come up with a solution to this problem, I'd be happy to hear it. But I see major problems, and it suggests that there are people in the first centuries that basically concocted some form of narrative to cover up these cracks. But we are now seeing the holes in this narrative.
Absolutely, or at least somebody began to reminisce and try to remember dates as they were recording it, and they were relying on hearsay. Oh, I think it's this year, or I think it's that year. I'm open for that. Just tell us, you know what, it wasn't really firmed up. Now new discoveries are helping us to readjust our dating. I'll respect you for that. That's not a problem. Tell me that that's the case, and I will stop doing shows about this. But until you agree that we have a problem, then you cannot just use the same mantra over and over again, because it gets really old and it gets tiring, because you're not making any sense anymore. You're not even arguing in a reasonable way, if you wish. Thank you, as always, Mel. Let us tell the people, what is it that you're going to cover next time so they can anticipate that?
So we're going to see how much further this goes with the battles. So we're going to look at some of the other battles, and we're going to see what the evidence is with each of these battles, and see what the dating is, and just see, is this consistent throughout all the battles? Do any of these battles line up, or are the first few battles we've looked at just the exception to the rule? So be interested to see, is this just an outlier that we've looked at, or is this the consistent story that all of these dates are wrong? So that's coming up next.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Until next time, have a blessed day. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment. And ring the bell so you will be notified when we release new content. Our mission is to reach Muslims with the gospel of Jesus Christ and help Christians engage with their Muslim neighbors. If you want to join us in this life-changing work, please support us on patreon.com/Sira International, or just click on the link below.